Welcome to the Grid Irn-Cru podcast, an NFL podcast made in Scotland by NFL lovers. This is the news crew, and I'm your host, Keith McGinty. It's a quiet week in the world of the NFL, well, apart from more players being suspended due to betting, a raft of redundancies at ESPN, and news of a cancer sufferer in remission. So that could be bad news we'll get to soon. To talk ball, I'm joined by some of the finest crew members that we've got. Dan, a resident cowboy. Dan, how are we?
Yeah, all good. I think this is my third week in a row, so am I due a hat-trick ball for this?
Yeah, we one of the wee coins. It's like AA. This is therapy for you, buddy.
Yeah, all good. Looking forward to getting stuck into all the stuff I've got planned this week.
Fantastic. You been off on holiday?
No, not yet. Nothing. I was away at the start of June, but I think everybody else has been on holiday. That's how I managed to get 3 in a row.
One guy who's looking suntanned and interesting is Gav. Gav, welcome back. How are we?
Thanks very much. Yeah, so I've been away. I'm just back from Portugal and Lisbon for the last week. So yeah, obviously it's podcast number 2 for me. So yeah, just trying to catch up even Dan's streak there. But yeah, good to be back and get a nice, well, supposedly a quiet week for the 4th of July weekend. But yeah, plenty to talk about all the same.
Of course. A very belated happy 4th of July to all of our American listener. I hope everybody had a great time over there. Americans are all right, but really the main celebration in North America, of course, is Canada Day. And Captain Canada himself, Stu, joins us this week. Hi, Stu. How are we?
I'm doing really well. How are you, Keith?
I'm great, buddy. I'm great. Thanks for asking. See how he asked it. Aye, terrific, buddy. Terrific. How was your Canada Day? Did you do anything special for the holidays?
Yeah, my mum and dad are over from Scotland just now, so we've been doing kind of lots with them over the last kind of month. They're actually going home this weekend, so that's flown in. But last week we were off to Sylvan Lake, which is kind of like a bit of a beach resort in Alberta.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone from here will be able to tell you lots about it. So if anybody wants to comment that's maybe from Alberta and listening, feel free to chime in. But we had a great time there with the family. The kids loved it. And then we're back in Edmonton for Saturday, which was Canada Day. And we just had some friends over, had a barbecue, ate some maple syrup on the pancakes for breakfast, went to the fireworks at night and just had a good time kind of thing. So it's been a nice relaxing weekend.
Fantastic. And did your mum and dad bring over like square sausage and killie pies for you?
No, they can't smuggle that over. But the one thing we always make them bring over is Scottish blend tea bags, because the tea over here is absolutely rank. And I don't know even when you import it, it's strange because I know even like in Britain or whatever, like a lot of tea bags we get imported as well. But for whatever reason, everything's just tastes a little bit stale. So getting those like Scottish blend tea bags brought over in massive boxes, they basically dedicate one case to it. That sorts us out, but we've almost ran out of the tea bags that they brought over already, even though it was like 1,000 or something like that. But yeah, they've been here for a month.
Listen, you can blame the Americans for that. They started all the tea palaver a while ago. Excellent. Glad to hear everyone's well. I'm in the midst of my summer holidays just now. I went out for a wee round of golf by myself, so I'm even more like sunburnt than usual. The sun was out for a full 5 minutes. I'm going to have a big like, white band round here for my massive shades. Try to keep me shaded. Enjoying it. Having a wee bit of time with the boys and with Claire. So it's been great so far. So nice and relaxed. But I'll try and get a couple of wee days up the West Coast or something during the holidays. And I've got my 11th wedding anniversary to look forward to this Friday. So
11 years already.
Terrific.
Wow.
11 years. Yeah, absolutely flown in. Let's get started. Let's get down to what we're here to talk about here. We'll start with our kickoff question. And I think it was one of you guys suggested this. I loved it. Which WWE superstars would you compare to some of the great names of the NFL over the years? Who was it brought this up? Gav, was this your brainchild?
I think this one is maybe Dan's, but certainly I'd seen quite I suppose the flip side on it. So WWE actually put out their own list of who they thought were the biggest heels in pro sports generally recently. So number one in their list was Aaron Rodgers, which may not be surprising to a lot of people. But they didn't do their comps to who they thought would be, I guess, the WWE match for them. So I actually thought I'd maybe try and pair off the Jets' new QB with the WWE superstar. And I think for me, I'm going with Triple H. So we've got a guy who, I mean, obviously played face and heel throughout his career, but I think all the fans know him as being a heel. And I guess, he's the game. Aaron Rodgers, unbelievably talented QB, but also overshadowed perhaps by others, much like Triple H has been. So yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go with. Aaron Rodgers, Triple H.
Fantastic. Dan, it was you that came up with this. What are you going for?
So I'm not going to go for a particular player. I'm going to go for an owner, and it's got to be Jerry Jones, and he's got to be Vince McMahon, hasn't he? he's got the ego. He runs the biggest franchise. He thinks he's the man. Nobody can say no to him. I think Jerry Jones and Vince McMahon are a match made in heaven, I think.
I think that's a good shout. I would be going for myself, I think I'd be going for like Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. I think that would be a good shout for. I've just lost the. I've lost my thing. Yeah, Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. I'd go for him because it's just all the mental torture that he puts his opponents through. So that would have to be Bill Belichick. Absolutely have to be old Bill there.
I like it.
What we used to.
I said, I warned you guys before the show. I'm not going to try and make it too much of a downer, but as soon as you said, like, players like past, present as wrestlers, the first person that came to my mind, because I'm a Bengals fan, was Brian Pillman. I don't know if you guys remember Brian Pillman.
Yeah.
No.
So he was actually he was a NFL player kind of thing, or he was undrafted, but he signed with the Cincinnati Bengals. That was like his hometown team. And he played with them for a year and then ended up playing in the CFL. And the last team he played for was the Calgary Stampeders. That was in 1986. And then from there, he met Stu Hart and trained in the dungeon. And that's how he got into wrestling kind of thing from there, because he saw that his football career maybe wasn't going to go anywhere, and he tried really hard kind of thing and all that, and so anyway, ended up in wrestling, had a kind of great career there, was Stone Cold Steve Austin's tag partner back in the day, the two of them.
Was it Handsome or something like that?
Yeah.
Stunning Steve Austin.
Stunning Steve Austin, that was it. Yeah, Stunning Steve Austin and Brian Pillman. So they were really good friends and all that. And then I don't know if you remember, like before the end, he had that whole angle that kind of sort of led to the start of the Attitude Era, and it was a storyline involving Steve Austin coming to his house with a gun. And all that was when like WWF went, we're now becoming adult kind of thing. It was just like all of a sudden, out of nowhere, there was just this kind of thing of Stone Cold Steve Austin was trying to break in. They were filming this angle at Brian Pillman's house. And I think the funniest thing about the story was I watched like an interview recently with Brian Pillman's daughter, and she was talking about how she was in her bed that night and had no idea. It was just like a spur of the moment thing. They decided to do it. She had no idea. And all of a sudden, she's just hearing all this screaming of like, "Oh, he's trying to break in. He's got a gun," kind of thing. And it was basically her like uncle, Steve Austin, whoever was down the stairs. And the mother kind of goes up the stairs and was like, "No, it's all right. It's just they're filming it," kind of thing, because she was genuinely freaked out about this. But yeah, Brian Pillman, by all accounts, he was a stand-up guy, but sadly died. It was I think about a year after that. And it was a undiagnosed genetic heart condition. The thing that he went. So it's a shame for him. But yeah, he was a Bengal for a bit as well. So that's why he just immediately jumped into my brain. And also watching that documentary, maybe, I don't know, about...
to get the CFL. And the CFL. Everybody doing Stu Bingos, that's it. They've ticked off CFL. Ticked off the Bengals. Mate, you're flying
and wrestling.
And wrestling. Yeah. Just need a wee bit of the Hobbit in there, and that's you. Any other ones, guys? Did we have any other ones, Dan? Did you have any more?
No, I knew as soon as we got up with the topic that I was going all in on Jerry Jones. That was I hadn't looked at anything else.
I was thinking the Ted DiBiase as well.
$1 million man for
$1
Rodgers.
million man. The Rodgers, I was actually go for Ric Flair, Nature Boy, because he likes to be in touch with nature. Yeah, loudmouth as well.
Yeah. What about the Undertaker for? I mean, I guess he kind of talks about it big, but I was going to say Myles Garrett, maybe the Undertaker or someone like that, just because he kind of mows down people all the time. And
that's a good.
I can't believe we've actually got a couple of wrestlers who were players that we've not really discussed. So Brock Lesnar, obviously, was on the Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings.
And then,
Roman Reigns was an Ed McNelk.
Was he?
Yeah. And they had him come back actually to host last season. Roman Reigns was like the kind of guest of honor and did like they have like a kind of wind up thing before the kickoff. So Roman Reigns came and did that in Edmonton.
Yeah, The Rock, was it University of Florida The Rock played, was it? Or did he play?
Yep, it was University of Miami. Hurricanes, because I think they won I think they were national champions when The Rock was there. But of course, that's The Rock's whole story, is that he didn't make it in the NFL, and in fact didn't make it in the CFL either.
Yep.
But I think that's
bought his own league.
Bought his own league, and that's the whole play with the XFL, is trying to give these guys who are not quite on the cusp of the NFL an opportunity to keep playing.
Of course, he's been an owner of the league. He's been an agent as well for Ballers, if you remember watching that.
That was a class show.
Fantastic. Good. Well, let's move on to some of the main talking points in the news this week. It's a pretty quiet week, so we've got a wee bit of a new feature that we're going to look into at the end of this. Let's start with a wee bit of happy news. Foster Moreau of the Las Vegas Raiders. He's left the Raiders, hasn't he?
Where is he?
Is he at Atlanta now? Falcons?
Yeah, I think so.
He has. Anyway, Foster Moreau has Saints. I knew it was that. One of the two. He has been put into remission from cancer, which is fantastic news. It didn't seem that long ago that it came out with the news that he was battling it. But it's fantastic bit of news. Hopefully, he'll just continue to go from strength to strength, and if he can get his strength back up, and hopefully see him at some point this season. But it's great that the Saints have taken him on. A lovely bit of news there. Dan, next bit of news that we have is Buda Baker of the Cardinals. He's been the professional. He's still turning up to training, but he's not happy. He's looking for a fair deal. Can you give us a wee bit more information on this, please?
Yeah, so reading the news, and he's turned around and said he wants paid better, but he doesn't want to be. He's not expected to be the top paid safety in the league. So
yeah,
and looking at the topic, I had a quick look at the players who are in the league are getting paid more than him. So he's the 7th highest paid safety in the league. So if he's not wanting to be one of the top paid ones, where does he see himself sitting? Do you know what I mean? Like, you're already 7th highest paid. So I'll quickly run through without getting into too much detail. So number one's Derwin James at the Chargers, who's averaging $19 million a year. Minka Fitzpatrick's getting 18.2. Jamal Adams is getting 17.5. Jesse Bates is getting 16. Harrison Smith's getting 16, and Justin Simmons is getting 15.2. Baker's coming with 14.75 average a year. So where does he see himself in that bracket? Does he want to go up $1 million? Does he want to go up $2 million? Because he's only 4.25 million behind the number one paid safety in the league each year. So where does he want to be is what I would ask the question of.
I mean, looking at it from my side, I would say, is he better than Jesse Bates? I'm going to be biased and say no. So probably roundabout there, though. I would say probably I imagine that he's going to ask for $2 million extra, like you said. And probably if I'm Arizona, I'm probably going to go back and go like, well, okay, well, you said you want to be, you're not going to be the top paid guy. So here's an extra $1 million. How does that suit you? Kind of thing. And he'll probably say, sure.
Is he better than Harrison Smith?
I don't know if he is. I don't think he is.
So that would,
and he's, because I mean, what age is Buda Baker now as well? Because that's the other thing too, is like, I imagine he's going to start declining. Because I mean, Jesse Bates, he's just signed that deal, but he's kind of hitting the prime of his career.
Buda Baker is 27.
27. So,
and well, maybe other thing to factor in there, Stu, is he has 2 years left in his contract. So actually thinking, well, by the time he's coming up to renewal, he's 29.
Yeah.
And then, what's your value looking like in 2 years' time? So try and get that deal signed now.
Yeah.
Try and get a bit more money while your stock's high.
Yeah, that's why he wants paid now, because he knows his next contract's not going to be.
Oh yeah, his next contract you would expect would be more along the lines of sub 10 million, depending on the cap going up and all that. But it's probably sub 10 million. And if I'm Buda Baker, I'd probably be looking to go somewhere where I could maybe win a ring before the career's done as well. Yeah. So you're kind of thinking, make as much money as you can the next 2 years, and then it's try and tack on and be like the extra safety, or be the influence for the younger players kind of thing. So I'm not saying he's a bad player. I mean, I rate Buda Baker highly. I just think there are better safeties. So.
The other thing to bear in mind is that the Cardinals are kind of resetting. Is he where they really want to put their money in just now? The PFF website had them as the 17th best safety last season. Is that really an area that they want to focus on, that they want to put that wee bit extra money in, or is that something that they could be looking at building elsewhere? Looking at some of the names on the PFF, it was quite surprising. Of course, I'm going to have to start with this one. Number 1, Ryan Neal, the Seattle Seahawks. 2 is Minka Fitzpatrick. 3, Tyrann Mathieu from the Saints. 4, Cameron Curl from the Commanders, and then 5, Rodney McLeod from the Colts. It seems to be, she's mentioned there, these ages a problem there, but it seems to be this is something where young players are coming in, and that's maybe where they're looking to invest in the future. Maybe take the hit this season, they'll never say that they're going to tank this season, but it looks as if that's what they're going to be doing, just try to get the draft capital for the next couple of years and build back up again, because their QB still young enough that they can do that. Do you think that is something then, Gav, that they will be looking to do? Is he a priority for them? Or
yeah, I mean, I think it's one of these things you're going to weigh up is the importance of the safety position. I mean, obviously, money in the NFL always revolves around the quarterback position first and foremost. That's where you build your franchise, but then your key players after that, usually the ones that are either protecting your QB or getting after the other team's QB, and then all your other players kind of secondary, to be honest. I mean, if you've got a talent, you want to keep them, but money with the cap's always going to be limited in the NFL, and I think it's difficult, when you look at, how he stacks up against other players at the position in the NFL. Is it really worth paying top dollar for someone who probably isn't, at the top of the position, and it's not really one of the high priority positions on the roster?
So do you think that, I'll come to you in a wee second, Dan. So do you think that Baker's experience and leadership is something that could be used in maybe a team that are hoping to build something and maybe compete and challenge in the next maybe 1 or 2 seasons? I'm thinking possibly something like the Ravens or even the Bears, who seem to be making inroads into building a team that they can hope will challenge, whether they will be able to do so. Would this be a sensible option for them?
I mean, I would actually have said if Seattle didn't already have an outstanding safety, I would have said that maybe that would have been an ideal spot, because that's a team that I'm viewing as are actually on the, despite the fact we all thought they were going to be rebuilding, and last year went so much better than anybody expected, and going by what they've drafted this year, I know people can maybe say that they've taken some positions like running back and stuff a little bit too early in the last couple of drafts, but I mean, it's working out for them. I would have said, maybe somewhere like that, but you're kind of locked up with safety. But yeah, I mean, I guess looking at the Bears, that's obviously, they were 32nd in the league for defense or something last year. I mean, the front, well, basically all their defense was kind of a giant tire fire, but I would say they need to kind of address the front line of that first. But if they are wanting to start making inroads, I think Buda Baker could go there, and maybe he would help change the culture there. But he was meant to do that in Arizona as well, was kind of help build the winning culture, and look how that's went.
I suppose when you've not got really get the buy-in for the QB there as well.
I was going to say, I've not heard as many stories about Justin Fields sitting on Call of Duty rather than going to training kind of thing instead. Justin Fields at least seems to be into training and getting better, so yeah, it might be a better fit.
The Seahawks would have been a good shout. I agreed with that, but we've got a good young team that seem to be hungry, and Pete Carroll's building something there. We've also got Quandre Diggs, who's shown to be a useful safety there as well, along with Ryan Neal. So that's quite interesting. Dan, what have you got to say?
I was saying, I kind of gave a good gav about how the priority for the Falcons, the Cardinals, where he is. But what I'm thinking now is we've said on several occasions that it's now a passing league. Everybody's accepted this is now a passing league. So the safety position is becoming a more important position on the defense. So you're going to want someone at the top of their game if you're going to pay them big money. So Budabaker's not at the top of his game to combat that passing attack from the opposition. So you're going to pay him the big money that, like Minka Fitzpatrick's getting. You're not going to do that because he's not going to give you the same level of production as someone like Fitzpatrick would.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu, I'm going to come to you for the next item we've got here is JJ Watt joins. Oh no, sorry, it's Gav. I'm coming to you for JJ Watt joins CBS as a studio analyst. JJ Watt, of course, who had recently is bought into Burnley football club here in the UK as well. And interesting appointment. Do you think he'll give some good colour to his the analyst on CBS?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think JJ Watt's a guy that's done it all in his career, and obviously we know him for his defensive talents. But I think just looking back and remember, he actually has 3 receiving touchdowns to his name as well. As you mentioned, he's invested in Burnley. Huge European football fan. And I think now, obviously, with the deal with CBS, I think it's just going to bring that energy to the studio. And I think the one thing that really interests me is, if you think about it, with most analysts, not all, but most tend to be focused on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, we know CBS, the big name there, certainly in the commentary side is Tony Romo, but also with the likes of Boomer Esiason. Before that, you look at Fox, Troy Aikman just signed Tom Brady to deal as well. So they like to go after quarterbacks, all the networks if they can. So getting someone from the defensive side of the ball, I think, is going to be great just to get that different perspective in the game. I think that brings some balance.
Dan, where did the link up with Burnley come from?
From the story I've read, I can't remember exactly where I read it, but I think he was over to take in a game. I'm not sure why, but he ended up drinking with the Burnley fans and basically fell in love with them, decided he was going to invest in their team. And a bit of a fairy tale story. Just to add to what Gav said, I think it's going to be good to see him as a defensive analyst in the studios, because you think about it, Gav, think about the people out there now, Romo, Aikman, they're not up to speed as such with the modern game. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be good to have someone that's literally just came out of the game, giving their analysis on what's happening on the field. And I think that'll be good when Brady goes to Fox as well, to give the current perspective of how it looks for a quarterback as opposed to someone that's played a good few years ago. So I think he'll be a good addition to the analyst crew across all the networks.
I think that's a really interesting point. Sorry to cut in, Keith. I think that's something we've seen with Romo. Is I think everyone loved him when he first came into the league, making the predictions about what would happen next. But even over the course of just a couple of years, it's amazing how quickly that knowledge drips away. So, like you say, Dan, having someone that's just come out of the league coming into the studio make a big difference.
So maybe you'll be able to remember this, but you're talking about the guy just coming in with match experience recently. Is there a former Viking that's been doing co-coms in the past year or so? I can't remember who it is.
You think of Greg Olsen?
Greg Olsen.
Yeah, it's Olsen. Yeah, I remember Dan, because I'm sitting going like, I think it's a tight end, but I could remember.
He's from. He's got his Tom Brady's waiting for his seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been impressed with him. I've enjoyed his commentaries and his breakdowns. Who's some of your favourite?
Well, probably my least favourite one now is Tony Romo, but that's only because Romo kind of picks his favourites, and then they can. Where I find him annoying is he picks his favourites and they can do no wrong, and to the point where he'll be talking down the other team that's playing against. Naming no names, Patrick Mahomes, kind of thing. Like, when anyone's playing the Chiefs, it's like and I get it because Mahomes is absolutely fantastic, but he just absolutely fanboys all over the Chiefs offense to the point where, let's say they're playing, I don't know, imagine we're playing the Cowboys and he used to play for the Cowboys, but he'll just be kind of talking down the defense and it'll always be like, oh, that's not a mistake from Mahomes if he makes a mistake. It's kind of like, oh, he really kind of planned that somehow. And then I don't know, he's my least favourite, but one of my favourites, and it's actually what we're going to talk about next, as part of the next segment, the ESPN layoffs, was Colbert. I really loved her, like in the morning show, and it's kind of gotten that she's been one of the ones that's been caught in that, the axe fallen. And like, to me, I kind of see her and go, like, there's a woman who's kept like a job, like a high profile job in the NFL world for as long as I've been alive. Like, it's like, I don't know if she'd want people sharing that, but it's like, 38, 39 years she's been on TV or something like that now. And I wouldn't say she was slowing down any. And, her analysis was good and she always had good input. So she was one of my favourites, but now she's gone.
Yeah, there seems to be a massive list of layoffs, and there's 15 in total. This seems to come from Disney, who own ESPN, looking for a bit more quality over quantity. When we talk about all the names that are going from the list, and I'm still getting used to the different voices and learning about all these different people and the analysts that are there and the information they've got. But you would think that the wealth of experience and the contacts that these people have got, it'd be better to keep quite a few of these on rather than, well, Dan, maybe you could explain to the reason why Disney are looking to get rid of a few analysts here. Who is it that's coming on that's taking over?
Yeah, apparently this is all Pat McAfee's fault. So, I think everybody is well aware of who Pat McAfee is, but as someone, as we've spoke about, as a massive WWE fan, I've been exposed to a lot of Pat McAfee over the last couple of years, and I think he's brilliant. I think he brings an energy and an enthusiasm, and his knowledge of WWE in a short space of time has been phenomenal. But watching his show, he gets all the big guests on his show as well. Everybody wants to sit and talk to him. I think it's because of his personality and what he does. He's very knowledgeable. So I think ESPN bringing him on board is a great move, and it seems to be they're thinking, like you said, Keith, they want the quality that's maybe going to bring new viewers to them, which is then going to potentially get them more money, which obviously at the end of the day is what matters to these companies. But I think they're trying to bring a new audience in, and bring McAfee in is going to bring in a lot of people to their network. And I think it's the afternoon slot he's got as well. So I think it's a great move by ESPN to bring McAfee in. I think he'll be brilliant for them.
It's a bit like on Spotify when they went for who's the top podcast.
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan. It's kind of like going for that, isn't it? They're trying to get the best in the business that's going to bring a fresh, youthful ness to the station, and you can see maybe that's why that they're going to do that. McAfee show is great. It's good. It's relaxed. It's something I would love to foster with this, and we'll hopefully get to. We're doing just now, and what we'll get to and continue to do is just like four pals talking about football, and that's Keith, what it comes across.
Keith, are you saying that we stress you out and it's not relaxed enough for you? Is that what you're insinuating here?
Yeah, I'm starting to grow. Well, I'm not going grey. I'm never going to go grey. No, this is a joy, but that's what we want. This is what we want to come across. It's pals just talking about a sport that they love and the topics they love, and try to get wee different points of view about it, and hopefully that comes across. And I think we're doing well so far. But yeah, no, there seems to be a bit of fallout then for the ESPN. Hopefully these people will get landing spots elsewhere. There's plenty of startup podcasts that they'll be able to do, and you'll probably find that the contacts that they've made from within the sport they'll be able to get their own experiences shared in their own podcast and things like that. No, it'll be interesting to see. Dan, I'll come to you then.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say one more thing on that. It's it's interesting to see, though, just like across, I guess, the sports broadcasting world in North America. Like, I've kind of been watching it changing a little bit, like even since I've been here for close to a decade now. And just recently as well in Edmonton, TSN 1260, which is TSN partner with ESPN quite a lot. The whole sports radio station's been shut down. Just gone. There's no more sports radio in Edmonton, which is bizarre because when you looked at all the kind of radio ratings, it had almost double the daily listenership of any other radio station in the city, kind of thing. So it's, TSN's just decided they're going to run one show out of Toronto. So it's the same thing. It's like cost savings, and they've decided to just go one kind of route. But to me, I go, well, nobody wants to hear about, in Edmonton especially, it's an NHL market. So they have like the Edmonton Oilers are a massive team. With a large following, like even in the States, like there's Oilers fans. Whenever I go down there, you meet people and they're like, "Oh, you live in Edmonton, yeah," and you see guys with Oilers jerseys. Like, but anywho, like basically, you don't need to have the Toronto Maple Leafs getting rammed down your throat all day, every day, kind of thing. It's fair enough with the Blue Jays. There's only one Canadian baseball team now, so everybody kind of tends to support them. But Edmonton, yeah, it definitely had enough of a market for that radio station to keep going. But you've now seen all those guys and ladies that were on the station are now out of jobs. But like you just said with podcasts, a lot of them already had podcasts that they've kind of been starting up over the last year. So I think maybe they've had some advanced warning and
they're writing on the wall there.
Coming. So it's good that you can still kind of get in touch with them or whatever, and hopefully they'll all manage to keep going. But it's not like it's really easy for Edmonton sports broadcasters to find another job without moving cities unless they can do it on their own.
It's curious there's not that diversity on something as accessible as the radio that you have to. I know we can do it very easily, go on and find podcasts that we like, but it's curious. But Viva the La Podcast, hopefully it gets people's voices out there. The diversity and the way it's expanding in the podcast world, it's great to see. It's hopefully we can add to that, and I'm sure we will over the next couple of years anyway. Next up then on the news, we have Russell Wilson looking to cook again. Dan, I'll come to you for this one.
Yeah. I think we're looking at how Sean Payton going to turn Wilson and obviously the Broncos around in general. Is he going to turn Wilson back into an elite quarterback? I just looked just before we came on. I looked at the quarterbacks that Sean Payton's worked with. Here's one for you, Gav. When he was offensive coordinator for the Giants and he's got to Super Bowl in 2000, who was the quarterback?
Kerry Collins.
Kerry Collins, yes. So he worked with him. He got the Giants to the Super Bowl with Kerry Collins. When he was at the Cowboys, apparently he was the one who was responsible for signing Tony Romo as an undrafted free agent. And then obviously we all know what he done at the Saints with Drew Brees. So he has got the reputation of being obviously was an ex-quarterback himself, of working very well with quarterbacks. My question would be, is Wilson beyond that point now in his career? Obviously we know he had a great career at the Seahawks. And I just looked at his stats. His last 4 years at the Seahawks, he was averaging 110, 106, 105, 103 a passer rating. Last year with the Broncos, it was 84.4. So his lowest rating as a quarterback in his whole career. And last season, he also flung the least amount of touchdowns he's had in his NFL career, with only 16. So I know he's playing with the Broncos and he's not got a lot around about him, but is he going to turn around and be back being a quarterback? He could be. I think he's beyond that. I think he's a good serviceable quarterback for him. He'll be good for the Broncos and for Payton, but I don't think he's going to get them back to that level where the Broncos.
What do you think, Gav? Is Sean Payton going to be the QB whisperer?
Yeah, that's the exact phrase I had in my mind. I think Dan's actually kind of touched on it there at the end of his spot. Is what does good look like? Because I think Russell Wilson, perfectly serviceable, great career. That's a big drop off in one season. You've got to say after quite a strong stretch with the Seahawks throughout his career. And I mean, as a Giants fan, I mean, I'm a big believer in the impact that a good coach can have on a team. Obviously, look at what Daboll's done with Daniel Jones. So I think if he can make Daniel Jones a playoff winning QB, then I think if we look at what Peyton could do with someone like Russell Wilson, who's already been to multiple Super Bowls, I think there's definitely room for improvement. But as I say, is that going to take them, to ring? Probably not. But if you're a Broncos fan, just playing a few extra games in January, you'd probably say that's a win this year, and I definitely say that's possible. It's easy to say when everyone's 0-0 at the moment.
Yeah. Stu, with Peyton coming in, do you think that he's going to be able to work with Wilson, because Wilson's maybe coming for his lowest low? He's maybe thinking he's lost his way. This is a great chance for me to work with a head coach who knows how to win Super Bowls, who knows how to get the best out of his QBs. Do you think he's maybe in a place where he's ready to listen, ready to learn? Because it sounded as if that's not where he was when he was in Seattle. He was it had to be done his way, get rid of people that I don't like. They couldn't chase him out quick enough by the sound of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think maybe last year might have been a bit of a kind of, reality check for him, like just in terms of like how it went. Because in Seattle, he was the top dog like for years when he was there, and I know eventually it seemed like his and Pete Carroll's relationship broke down. But just like I think with Peyton coming in this year, it's like he's got a head coach now that in Denver at least that he's going to have to respect, because I mean Sean Payton has done it before multiple times, kind of thing in other places. Maybe not always winning rings every single year, but like regardless of what you think of the New Orleans Saints, like they were always competitive, and they were always up there. Can he ever be, I know he never won the MVP, but he was usually in the running for it, kind of thing most years. Is he ever going to get back to that level? I'm not sure about that, but I do think he's going to bounce back this year and maybe next year as well and provide, more than a serviceable. He could be a top 10 quarterback in the league. The biggest issue for Denver, though, is the division they're in, because all of the teams that are in there with them, the Raiders are wanting to improve, the Chiefs are there, and they're always going to compete whilst they have Mahomes. Now I'm fanboying the way Tony Romo does. And then the Chargers as well. It's like, I think Justin Herbert, like an uninjured Justin Herbert, who's going to be coming into this year fresh, I think he could be doing some damage as well. So I'm hoping that this year's the year that division is what we thought it was going to be last year. Because remember, everybody was predicting it to be an absolute, gunfight basically the whole way through. So I don't know if the Broncos make the playoffs. I still don't think they've done enough, with the rest of the team yet. But Peyton will definitely steady the ship, and I think Russell Wilson's going to come round and listen. And there's been, he'll have the summer to work on Peyton's playbook. So I think good times are on the horizon for Denver, but maybe not the playoffs this year, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, this leads us very, very well into our next segment. This is going to be first off a wee focus on different aspects of the game that we're going to get a chance to. Well, it's the off season when it's a wee bit quieter. We're going to have this is called the Crew Deep Shots. So the question that we've got is, which backup QB stands the best chance of maybe taking over and having a successful year? We're talking about Wilson there, Dan. His backup there, probably the one that's going to make him sweat the most, would be Jarrett Stidham. Stidham, he played last year with your guys, is that right? No. Where was Stidham last season?
Raiders,
yeah.
Raiders, yes. Came in, took over from Carr for the last couple of games. Played quite well. It was quite impressive.
Yeah, it was still Rush last year at the Cowboys, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah, he's in a new deal as well.
He played against us.
one of those 4 games out of 5 got him a multi-year deal.
Yeah.
So, Russell Wilson, is Jarrett Stidham enough to make him worry and really focus in for the forthcoming season? Can you see him maybe taking over at some point if Wilson's not following Peyton's ways?
I don't think so. I think Stidham he's all right. He is a backup quarterback, but I think you're going to have to get to desperate stages as the Broncos before you bench Russell Wilson for him, is what I would say.
And it would, the amount of money that you're putting into Wilson as well, it's going to take something really, really bad for him to be benched by Payton, you would think. Dan, I sent out earlier on the list of the QBs. How about we start with divisions, then we'll go for the AFC East.
Yeah.
You've got Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones and Aaron Rodgers as QB1s, but then look at the backup. So the Bills have got Kyle Allen. Is he any relation?
Who knows?
I don't think so. Tua has actually got Mike White, who had quite a successful spell for the Jets last season. Mac Jones has got Bailey Zappi and Trace McSorley chasing down his tail. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers has got the young pretender, Zach Wilson. And that's it, really. Tim Boyle, Chris Streveler doesn't really fill you with much confidence there. But from Kyle Allen, Mike White, Bailey Zappi, and Zach Wilson, who do you think's got the best chance out of those four in the AFC East of making that step up?
Yeah, I think you're not going to get any of them benched unless a disaster comes in. I think Mike White had to play a couple of games for the Dolphins last year when Tua went down, but I think Skylar Thompson not play a bit better for the Dolphins when he stepped in last year. I think he was...
Skylar Thompson played, and so did Teddy Bridgewater when, but I think all of them at one point get concussed.
Yeah, because Teddy died like in that first game after Tua went down. So you remember he got horribly concussed. Get him out of the game, and then Skylar had to come in.
Yeah, I think. I don't think any of those guys will be challenging realistically for a starting spot. I think you're going to need to be an injury tour again. We don't know how he's going to be this year. Hopefully, he's been doing all his jiu-jitsu and judo, whatever it was he was doing to strengthen his neck. And he's going to be fine, but I don't see any of those guys realistically challenging for a starting spot this year.
But as you say, though, it sounds as if it could well be down to an injury. Mac Jones, I think his issue last season was the offensive line, not having as much protection as he would have wanted. Zappi had actually done quite well when he came in and maybe made a stake for himself, but you would think Mac Jones has got the accuracy, he's got a couple of years' experience now. He should still be able to retain that position. There doesn't seem to be any noises coming out of New England that there's going to be any replacements. He seems to be the main guy there. Let's have a wee look at the AFC West then. Gav, I'll come to you for this one. So we were just talking about Russell Wilson with Jared Stidham. Patrick Mahomes is backed up by Blaine Gabbert, Shane Buechele, and Chris Ladocum. Jimmy G at the Raiders has got Brian Hoyer, Aidan O'Connell, and Chase Garbers backing him up. And Justin Herbert at the Chargers has got Easton Stick and Max Duggan. I love all these names. This is great.
Easton Stick. I've actually got on my notes Easton Stick, his name, purely because what a name.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean,
do you think Stick could shift him?
It's a pure stick on for success.
Well, I think the interesting thing, just looking at this, because I think we've all had to do a wee bit of homework prepping for this one, but there's a few familiar names in the sort of the backup QB room for the AFC West. And Blaine Gabbert been around for quite some time in the league, and Brian Hoyer, of course, as well. You know that he's racked up a few teams along the course of his career. I guess probably if you look at the list of QBs in terms of who's most likely to step in, your biggest question mark's got to be in Oakland. I guess Jimmy G's had his injury issues in terms of staying healthy.
Vegas, it's normally me that does that. Like, I love still calling the Chargers the San Diego Chargers as well. That one sticks in my brain.
But I think obviously in terms of chances for success, I mean, you've got to like Blaine Gabbert being able to step in with Kansas City. If something were to happen to Mahomes, it's certainly not going to be a major loss of form overnight. But you know, Chase Daniel has done a job in in Mahomes' absence in recent years. As he's got the coach, he's obviously a few of the receivers have moved on in KC, but they still had a ring last year. So I think Gabbert, he would like his chances if he had to step in, but Mahomes won't be letting that happen if he can help it.
Is that the hardest backup spot in the NFL to take over from Mahomes? Because or is it that the team is just so well drilled that you could put someone in there, maybe a wee bit like that? We'll talk about the 49ers a wee bit later on, but do you think the team's just so well, or is it just the magic of Mahomes that makes them such a special team? Personally, I think it's that Blaine Gabbert's that he's in a hiding to nothing. It's a tough shift that he's got in there. Thanks, Gav. Stu, we'll come to you then for the AFC North, where we have Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Deshaun Watson, and Kenny Pickett as the QB1s. Backing up Lamar, you've got Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson, and Anthony Brown. Joe Burrow is backed up by Trevor Seaman and Jake Browning. Deshaun Watson has Joshua Dobbs, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and Kellen Mond. And Kenny Pickett has Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, and Tanner Morgan. Mason Rudolph, of course, he was your man with the helmet smash. Is that right? Aye. Super.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah. Never been the same since.
Anyone there?
Yeah, I mean, like looking at the FC North, like I'd say the Browns have taken the biggest step back in terms of like who their backup was, because I'm obviously because they're now Deshaun Watson's going to have like a full summer and actually be allowed to train with the team and stuff. So they would assume that working out the end of the rust or whatever out at the end of last year's probably done enough for him. So they're all in on Deshaun now. So that's why Brissett was let go, and we'll get to him later on in this chat. But yeah, I would say, like, honestly, the Steelers, like, if you look at like who they have, it's like, well, Kenny Pickett. I'm not saying that he's not going to succeed this year, but who knows? Maybe Mitch Trubisky. I mean, they named him captain at one point last year, so he's shown he can do it in spurts, like here or there, on bad teams in Chicago. So maybe he can step in, and then Mason, he's been there before, knows the training staff well and everything, knows the playbook. So Mason's another guy that could also step in. So I would say in terms of overall depth, the Steelers probably actually have the best room, despite having the best overall room, despite not maybe having the best overall quarterbacks, because obviously Lamar, Joe Burrow, and Deshaun are probably your three that you would say are the outstanding guys. I kind of fancy Mitch or Mason to be able to step in there should anything go horribly wrong with Kenny. Yeah, I agree with that. AFC South End, Dan. The Texans, you've got CJ Stroud, penciled in as the starter there. Gardner Minshew for the Colts. Trevor Lawrence for the Jags, and Ryan Tannehill for the Titans. That's your QB1. So Stroud is backed up by Davis Mills, which according to Davis Mills, that might be the opposite way around, and Chase Keenan. The Colts, you've got Anthony Richardson breathing down Gardner Minshew's neck, and Sam Ehlinger, who had a few games last season. The Jags, Slinger.
Sam the Slinger. Jags have got Trevor Lawrence, you've got CJ Beathard and Nathan Rourke, and then Ryan Tannehill has Malik Willis, who kind of failed to impress last season, but they also invested in the second round in Will Levis, who might be a shrewd signing for them. What do you think there, Dan?
I think you've automatically you've got two quarterbacks that are not going to finish the season. I think Richardson, I don't know if he's going to start. I know obviously they get the depth chart, but I think Richardson will be the quarterback of the Colts by the end of the season. I think he, looking at draft day, is the most NFL-ready quarterback, I think, out there. So I think he'll be in at the Colts before we know it.
I'm saying I'm a Gardner truther, so
I love Minshew. I think he's brilliant. I think as soon as it starts going wrong, that's where they're going to change it. Do you know what I mean? Titans, I don't know, it's an interesting one at the Titans. I mean, obviously Malik Willis was a high pick for them and never really worked out. Is he going to be number 2, or are they going to take a chance on Will Levis if it starts going wrong? And I do think CJ Stroud will start the Texans. You're not going to draft someone that high up and not have him as your number one quarterback. So I think Trevor Lawrence, I think he's safe. I think unless he gets injured, I think he's the safest seat in that division. But yeah, I expect Richardson to finish the season as a Colts quarterback, and a potentially Will Levis stepping in at the Titans.
Yeah, I've got to agree with you there, Dan. I mean, I think the obviously Colts, they've said exactly where their future lies, drafting Richardson as they did. But I think the Titans is an interesting one. You've got two quarterbacks on the bench at the moment have been drafted in back-to-back years. That obviously Tannehill's been serviceable for many years now, but yeah, that's a team that's aware that something's likely to change in the near future.
Yeah, the one thing I would say on Tannehill as well, though, just on the Willis point, was people have been kind of a little bit down on Tannehill, I guess, like over the last few years. But I think last year kind of illustrated quite perfectly that Tannehill was actually a pretty good quarterback because when he was out, the Titans fell apart. When he was there, they challenged to make the playoffs, like even with a team that was crippled by injuries and things, and they had a bad O-line. Even Derrick Henry was getting stuffed in some games, and like with Tannehill, it's like he showed he could still do it. Whereas Willis, he's a rookie, and that's sometimes going to happen with rookies. They look a little bit adrift and kind of lost at sea. So I hope for the Titans' kind of competitive sake, or for the competitiveness of that division, I'm hoping that Tannehill stays healthy this year. And both Willis and Levis could probably learn quite a lot from them. I do think Levis probably has a higher ceiling than Willis, though, and he's definitely going to win out in the long term. But I think for his career development, it would almost be a good idea to have Tannehill as the number one for the next 2 years, and then have Will Levis sitting behind him and coming in and taking snaps where he can, kind of thing. And that's the way I would run it. But yeah, better respect for Tannehill, I think.
I don't think he's one that's going to go lightly as well. I think he is going to fight for his position. He's going to try and hold on to that as long as he can. Gav, come to you then for the NFC East, over to the NFC now. And we have Dak Prescott at the Cowboys, your man Daniel Jones at the Giants, Jalen Hurts at the Eagles, and Sam Howell at the Commanders. Or was it Washington football team again? They dropped the Commanders, is that right?
Still Commanders for now.
For now.
Yeah, they're revising that again, I think. In the Cowboys, you've got back up with Cooper Rush, we were talking about earlier, and Will Greer. The Giants have got Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito. Jalen Hurts has Marcus Mariota. That's good. He managed to get somewhere. Ian Book and Tanner McKee. He sounds like a golfer for Happy Gilmore. And the Commanders have got Jacoby Brissett, who Stu and I are big fans of, and Jake Fromm with Tim DeMorat there, just making up the numbers. What do you think in the NFC East then, Gav?
Yeah, well, I think, I'd mentioned this for the FC West, but actually, if you look at the NFC East backup QB room, all of these are recognisable names now. Obviously Cooper Rush last year 5-0 in Dak Prescott's absence. Tyrod Taylor, the Giants, you've got a guy that's got 58 NFL starts, playoff win to his name as well. Mariota, obviously, long-time starter with the Titans before moving through Oakland, and then Jacoby Brissett. So again, all I guess players that are capable of stepping in. I think talking about my guys, the Giants, Taylor's had to step in. I think maybe not quite where he once was. But again, with the coaching situation in New York, and the fact they're starting to add a little more talent to the wide receiver group, I'd like to think that Taylor could keep us afloat. In terms of most likely to step in, though, I'm still looking at Sam Howell, his situation in Washington. This is a guy who's started one game so far. And really small sample size. He's 11 of 19 in his career, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. We have very little to go on with this guy so far. Jacoby Brissett, experienced backup QB, and that's going to be a tough division. So I think if anyone's stepping in that division, I'm looking at Jacoby.
Yeah,
I think I agree with you there. Stu, we're going to power on a wee bit here. I'm going to come to you now for the NFC West. For the Cardinals, we've got Kyler Murray. The LA Rams, you've got Matt Stafford. Brock Purdy's in for the 49ers if he's fit and ready to go for the start of the season. And of course, you've got Geno Smith at the Seattle Seahawks. Backing up Kyler, you've got Colt McCoy, Clayton Tune, and David Bluff. Matthew Stafford's backed up by Brett Rypien, great name, Stetson Bennett, and Dresser Will. Some fantastic names. Brock Purdy is backed by Sam Darnold, who is in the news this week saying that he sees himself as a QB1, which is interesting that he's laying down the gauntlet there to Brock Purdy and Trey Lance, who's back up there at the 49ers just now. Geno's backed up, of course, by Drew Lock and Holton Allers. I don't even know about that guy yet. Who do you see there possibly making the breakthrough in the NFC West then, Stu?
Well, I mean, the obvious one is Colt McCoy's starting the year because Kyler Murray's injured, so, and he's going to be coming back for his surgery. But so really, it's Colt McCoy backed up by Clayton Tune, I guess, as it is right now. But yeah, looking at the rest of them though, you've got to think that as much as I love Big Cock Brock and we're fans of him on the show, that's a pretty strong kind of room that San Francisco's kind of got themselves there. Like Sam Darnold, and I've never been the biggest fan of him, but he's definitely a solid backup, like to be able to throw in there. Trey Lance, we don't know much about yet. He was starting to look better. Last year was meant to be the year, but then he obviously went down injured immediately, so missed out in the season. But with that San Francisco system, they seem to be able to just kind of keep throwing guys in, and they were okay for the first 3 quarterbacks, and then it was when they hit quarterback number 4 was when they ran into trouble. But I think they're probably hoping that this year they should do fine. But yeah, in that division though, I would say Sam Darnold, Trey Lance, that they could maybe come in after Purdy and do a job. And then Drew Lock, he's another guy that, like, on paper, Drew Lock's he was a decent enough quarterback in a bad Broncos team. So he could maybe do okay if he came in for Geno, but you're obviously going to hope Geno stays healthy. But I know
Geno took his chance last year, didn't he?
Yeah, the Rams, just to quickly speak about them, you need to hope if you're the Rams that Stafford is actually healthy and ready to go this year and the shoulder hasn't fallen apart, because looking at that one, Rippy and I'm not too convinced about. Stetson Bennett, he was just drafted this year, wasn't he? Yeah, because he was one of the names everybody was loving, kind of thing. So if I'm going to just put it out, there's a wild card that, based on name alone, that if Stafford goes down, that Stetson Bennett is the quarterback for the Rams. Good. By the end of the season, he'll be the starting QB, and a legend will be born.
Yeah, just hang his hat on Stetson Bennett there.
Can I just cut a jump in, Keith, before we move on just on this one?
Yeah.
All right? You've stole my thunder, because I had to text Gab before the show and I said I've got a left field one for you, and Stetson Bennett was my pick for who I think would step in if there was an injury. I think I picked him as well. But just go back to the 49ers. Purdy's not going to be fit to start the season, so they're still deciding whether it's going to be Darnold or Trey Lance that starts as number 1 QB. Yeah. What is interesting is if Darnold starts, Lance is also going to be QB number 2 until Purdy's fit. Where does Purdy then come? Does he go straight back in as number 1? Does he become number 2? Or is he suddenly number 3? I think that's going to be an interesting story to see how that one plays out. But all aboard the Stetson Bennett bus here.
I think, the 49ers, even just looking at the league as a whole, it's probably the best situation for a backup QB to come into. If you look at that team, you wouldn't even say that they know who their QB1 is, but they've got 3 guys there who could be. But Sam Darnold, that's a guy that's never been in a good situation in his career. Yeah. He's moved around a few teams, but the Jets, the Panthers, teams that have struggled for years and years, and now actually he finds himself in a QB room in San Francisco. So yeah, you would definitely like him if he's the guy to come in day one. Just maybe to say as well, Colt McCoy, 14 years in the league now. That's it's a good run for the guy. But yeah, I'm not sure how much you could do with Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, I'll come to you then for the NFC North. The Bears have got Justin Fields. The Lions have got Jared Goff. Packers are starting with Jordan Love. And the Vikes have Kirk Cousins, Big Daddy Cool there himself. So the Bears, Fields backed up by PJ Walker, Nathan Peterman, and Tyson Bagent. And the Lions, Jared Goff is backed up by Nate Sudfeld, Hendon Hooker, and Adrian Martinez. Jordan Love is backed up by Sean Clifford and Danny Etling. And Kirk Cousins is backed by Nick Mullins and Jared Hall. Do you see any of them staking a claim then for the forthcoming season?
Just looking back through the leagues divisions here, that's a horrendous division for backup quarterbacks. You would not want any of them to step in for your team, to be honest with you. That is worrying if any of those players go down. I don't think... We know Nick Mullins has been around. He was at the 49ers he was at, and he got a few games at the 49ers, didn't he? Nathan Peterman's been floating about the league as well. I would have, as a fan of any of those teams, I would not be confident if a number one QB got injured. I think you would probably see, if one of them went down, somebody, a free agent, getting picked up to cover. I don't think you're going to get any of these guys stepping in. Hendon Hooker, I think, could be a good quarterback coming out of college. I don't think he's ready to be that level, but he was decent enough at college, but I don't think he's going to give you that step up. So I think anybody in that league gets injured, I can see a free agent getting picked up to cover, not any of these guys.
Yeah. Hooker started at Virginia Tech Hokies and then went on to the Tennessee Volunteers. So I'll be interested to see. He might be, like you say, he might be the one who's slotted in to take over if Goff, who's been doing great for the Lions, if he was to go down. NFC South then, Gav, will finish off with yourself. Desmond Ridder at the Falcons, Bryce Young at the Panthers, Derek Carr at the Saints, and Baker Mayfield at the Buccaneers. That's just weird that he's taking over for the great Tom Brady. Falcons backed up, Ridder's backed up by Taylor Heineke, Logan Woodside and Felipe Franks, fantastic. Panthers, Bryce Young's backed up by Andy Dalton and Matt Corral. Derek Carr at the Saints, backed up by Jameis Winston. Struggling with
Jameis.
What is? New doesn't sound right. Jameis Winston, Jake Hayner, and Taysom Hill. And Baker Mayfield is backed up by Kyle Trask and John Wolford. Who do you think is going to step right up?
Well, I'll tell you what, the NFC South is a really interesting division because you've got three teams have got a new QB1 going into the season here. Obviously, Bryce Young, number one pick in the draft. Derek Carr, acquired from the Raiders. Baker Mayfield has obviously moved on as well. So Desmond Ridder with the Falcons is the only one that's actually with the same team that he was at last year. But even then, only 4 NFL starts. Did okay for a rookie to record. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of question marks, I guess, with any of these teams. I guess in terms of who is most capable to come in, it's probably a toss-up between the Panthers and the Saints. I mean, Jameis Winston's done it before for the Saints. And of course, Andy Dalton, long-time QB1 in the league, mainly with the Bengals, but also has had to come in Dallas. And I guess Bryce Young, you'd expect, number one draft pick, he's going to be your day one starter, but these things don't always go to plan. So yeah, it's probably a toss-up between those two. Would maybe fancy Jameis Winston to more success, given that the team around him, if he comes in. But I think either of these two definitely capable backups.
Yeah.
I still feel like Taysom Hill is cheating as well. Somewhat. I hate Taysom Hill in fantasy, just for the fact that people are able to play him as quarterback or tight end or whatever, and then he gets rushing touchdowns. It's like he's playing everywhere. But I'd agree with you on that. I think for me, I look at it and go Andy Dalton. I mean, he was the guy that this week said he was a QB1 and probably should be thought of as a QB1. And sure, yeah, Bryce Young's great, but if I'm the Panthers, if there's any sign that Bryce Young maybe isn't picking it up quick enough in training camp, then it's kind of easy to flip to, after a couple of games or even like in the preseason, if it looks like, yeah, Bryce Young's not ready. Why risk destroying his confidence by having him getting absolutely mauled in the NFL? Just let him sit for a bit and let Andy Dalton be the one that's smacked around.
What do we think is going to happen with Matt Corral? They only drafted him last year.
Well, I'm a guy that invested in Matt Corral, not in the draft, but I grabbed him off free agency in our Dynasty League last year, when we first started out. Post-draft, when we'd made our teams, I grabbed Matt Corral and stuck him in my taxi squad because I thought, he's going to be the guy there. Eventually, I was a big believer in Matt Corral after his college career, so I was kind of sad to see them getting Bryce Young a little bit because I thought, well, I'll still hold on to him, but I know that the injury last year was, that was the thing, was that I think that if he hadn't got injured pre-season, there might have been a chance that he got into games last year and then, maybe he would have done more, but we'll see now. I mean, maybe he'll still eke out a career, but I think his ship might have sailed, and that's the issue in the NFL. That's all it takes, is one little injury and then you're gone and a new guy comes in and takes your spot.
There we go. That's the Crew's point of view on that. If you have a different thoughts on it, if you think there's someone else destined to the Matt Saracen and take the step up and lead the team to victory, then get in touch. Let us hear what you've got to say. We are going to now move on to Dan's third and top 10. I've actually got the top 10 this week. So, guys, we're going to quick fire through these top 10s. And the theme, continuing on with our quarterback chat, is who has the most interceptions of the NFL quarterbacks. Now, to make it a wee bit more easier for us, a wee bit more relevant, I've done it from 1980 onwards. So these should be all names that we recognise, we're aware of. I've taken a wee note of them. There's one or two that I wasn't quite sure of, but being a relative newcomer to the game for the past couple of years, then plenty of these names that I would get, and you guys should be able to get them as well. So let's see, Gav, I'll start with you.
I'm going to go with gunslinger Brett Favre.
Brett Favre is actually at the very top. Ding, ding, ding. 336 interceptions in 302 games. Number one in our list then. Stu?
I'm going to go Joe Namath.
Joe Namath is not a Namath that I have on the list here.
Great bundle.
Dan, who are you going for?
I don't like being this side of this seat. I don't like this. I'm going to go, based on the amount of passes and the amount of yards that he threw in his career, Peyton Manning.
Peyton Manning is number 4 on our list with 251 interceptions. He had that in 266 games. Back to you, Gav.
I will keep it in the family. Again, long career, but again, a bit of a gunslinger. I'm going to go with Eli Manning.
Eli,
one of my favorites.
absolutely. At number 5 there. 236 games, 244 interceptions for Eli. Stu?
Philip Rivers, as many interceptions as he has children.
Rivers, you're striking out again, my friend.
Oh my goodness! He had a long career. He was clearly better than. He was a good quarterback, but he obviously was even better than I remember him being.
Rivers had 209 interceptions. He's joint 25th in the overall list that I've got here, but he didn't make it into our top 10.
Can't believe that.
Go for it, Dan.
Fight between two here. I'm going to go still active Matt Stafford.
Matt Stafford? No, Stafford is not there. I'm checking to see the overall list. He is at the very end, joint 49th with 169 interceptions. But no, I will do one more round each then. So, Gav, your final guess.
Oh,
For the
Again,
hat trick.
I'm going to try Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Ryan Fitzpatrick. Fitzmagic is not in the list. He's not making our top 10 from 1980 onwards. I'd like to see if he's on there. He's actually joint with Matt Stafford to 169. Come on, Stu. Time to get some points on the board here.
Okay. There's a few I'm thinking of, but I'm going to go for a big name and just hope that I'm correct. I'm choosing between two, a dolphin and a cowboy. Okay, I'm going to go with the dolphin, Dan Marino.
Dan Marino, great shout. He's in at number 3 with 252 interceptions in
Nice.
242 games.
Saved my blushes there a bit.
Dan, finishes off then.
Trying to think whether to go back or whether to stay reasonably current. That's the decision to make.
Go back. I've realised the 80s was probably a good idea. I was trying to go too current.
I'm going to go... I was completely forgot his name. Hey, Joe Montana.
Joe Montana. Of all the names that you could have had from back then, Joe Montana does not make our top 10. Let me see, where is the mountain man himself? Joe Montana. I'll find him in the list, but he didn't make our top 10. I'll run through them. So number 1 we had was Brett Favre with 336. Number 2 was Vinny Testaverde, 267. 3, Dan Marino. We got Peyton Manning at 4, Eli Manning at 5, Drew Brees.
Oh, Drew Brees.
Drew Brees at 6, 243. Yep. Warren Moon, who I'm not familiar with, number 7.
Hey,
He's
Warren
an
Moon.
ex-Seahawk.
Warren Moon was also a CFL legend. Warren Moon, he's one of the few guys to win both, or to play in both the NFL and the CFL. I think he won multiple Grey Cups.
Oh, fantastic! There you go. That's my homework for the week. Find out a bit more about big Warren Moon. John Elway.
John Elway, yeah.
With 226. Tom Patrick Brady.
I thought about it. That's what I was thinking. But I thought, surely he's not on the list. But there you go.
And Big Bad Ben Roethlisberger with 211.
I missed a chance to have a go at the Steelers. I can't believe it. But
so who was it we were missing there? I'm just looking down the list to see if no, Montana didn't make the top 50. It seems.
Wow. Shows you how good he was.
Yeah, no, he's not in the top 50. So that just shows you.
The cowboy I was thinking of was Troy Aikman, but I don't know where he would have been on the. I don't know if he was on the list anywhere, but I mean, you don't need to
share the list.
Dak Prescott must be getting near the top 10 the amount of interceptions he's thrown.
Fantastic, guys. And over to then yourself, Stu, for the statistic of the week, please.
Okay, so staying on the quarterback theme, my statistic of the week was, and I like this because it's a matching number, the year that had the most quarterbacks starts for, or quarterbacks played for teams in the league was 1987, and there were 87 different quarterbacks started.
Oh.
And the reason for that was there was a players' strike that year, and they actually lost a week of the season as well. So even with the lost week, so ended up with a 15-week season instead. They ended up with 87 different quarterbacks starting. And the other thing I like about this is it ties into the only team that didn't have any scabs or picket line breakers at all. So there was only one team in the league that never had anybody break the strike, and they won the Super Bowl that year. Can any of you remember who it is?
87.
They beat the Broncos in the final. I'll let you know that. They absolutely stuffed them. I mean, I was 3, but it's a team we mentioned earlier on.
49ers.
No, this wasn't Montana with the 49ers, because he won it 2 years later again against the Bengals. But it was the Washington football team, or Redskins as they were back then, kind of thing. But the Washington team, they were the only team in the entire league that didn't have anyone cross the picket line, which I thought was kind of impressive, considering they then went on to win the Super Bowl, despite having to play with replacement players. So good for them for actually striking and not getting paid, but then winning a ring.
See,
Had to get their money
socialism
somewhere,
wins out.
Yeah, socialism. They should be the Washington
So-
Socialists. Washington Marxists.
Fantastic. That was outstanding, Stu. Really enjoyed that. It's a great fact. We'll make sure we share that on our Twitter feed as well. Gentlemen, I really thought we were going to struggle with it tonight at 1 hour, 15 minutes exactly. We've blasted through the news. We've got a new wee feature there that worked really well. So we'll continue that on next week. Gav, thanks very much for joining us, buddy.
Thank you, Keith. Thanks, guys.
Dan, really enjoyed that, mate. We'll get your top 10 next week if you're on, or whenever you're back on next.
Yeah, pleasure as always. I didn't like being in the hot seat. I'd like my feature back, please.
And Stu, fantastic as always, my friend.
Cheers for having me on again. It's always fun, and it was good to be back. And it was nice to meet you as well, Gav, because this is the first time we've been on together.
Absolutely. Likewise, Stu.
Bring people together. That's what we like to do in the crew. Thanks very much for listening. If you have enjoyed the podcast, please make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a comment wherever you get your podcast feed from. You can follow us on Twitter, while it's still there, at Grid Irn-Cru. That's at Grid, GRIDIRN, and CRU for the full handle there. Find us on Instagram as well, Grid Irn-Cru. On there, get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any questions for the crew, any suggestions for our kickoff question or our deep shot, then get in touch. And we'll be back next week with more views on the week's news, and we will help you get through. I think we're down to 55 days till the season starts, gentlemen. Looking forward to it already. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you again next week.